So my name is John Hernandez. I'm a former staff member of the union, the Writers Guild of America West. It was from the years 2016 through 2019. First, I started as a temp, as a I guess, residuals processor that lasted for less than a month before they offered me a more slightly more advanced position as a residuals processing coordinator. Um, and I was promoted in less than a year to a residuals collections coordinator, which was a mix of accounting and customer service and paralegal work. It was pretty advanced stuff. I mean, I argued with lawyers and I was successful. I mean, I argued with residuals managers and residuals directors from various studios. And, I noticed, a lot of dysfunction within my department because of the caseloads. I had, some coworkers who would rush through cases and, sometimes one of the things that I noticed early on was, there would be mistakes from past cases, like a new case for a title, like a movie or TV show would be made, and then I would look at past payments, and it turns out, oh my God, this previous coordinator they missed these payments, and now I have to inherit this problem, and try to go after these new updated outstanding payments and also these older payments. Um, so my strength was accuracy and quality. Making sure that everything was done by the book. But also, the price for that was, because I was, working, by the book. Sometimes, um, it took longer. Ultimately, everyone made some kind of compromise. In my opinion, you know, working by the book, making sure that everything was done, every case was closed accurately, my conscience is clean. The other thing that I wanted to point out is that, I reported, the maximum allowable overtime, which was 10 hours per week, but I was working more than that. Like, I was often, I was often leaving at 9:30 p.m. 10:30, 11:30 p.m. There was one time I even left at 5 a.m. Like my start time was like I think 9:30 a.m. in the morning, and I didn't do that again because it's like I can't maintain that level of concentration, for a desk job, for that long. So yeah, I didn't do that again. But the fact that you know there was I worked that long, and it wasn't reported. I didn't get paid for that. One of the reasons was, I mean, I was excited about the job. Like I was one of the few people there during that period. There was a lot of randomness that I saw in the staff, like because a lot of people in this union they started as temp employees, and I mean, I practically got the job through a 15-minute phone interview. So, I mean, in my opinion, they lucked out with me because, I was a very much like a pro labor guy before entering the Writers Guild. So I was like crazy dedicated, but also, working as a residuals collections coordinator, I was paid more than any previous job that I had before, which is, mostly like data entry and customer service, mostly data entry. Um, um, but one thing that I read in Harvard Business Review, I couldn't find the exact article, but like there was was a good article about it doesn't matter how much a person gets paid. Like if they're not treated well, eventually they get used to that, and it doesn't matter. At my peak, I was making around 73 or 74,000 in 1 year. But again, that's with the overtime, and that's not with all the overtime that was actually worked. That's just counting the overtime that was reported. I was working. I mean, if I was working if I was reporting 2 hours of overtime one day, more than likely I was working. The real number was something like 4 or 5 or 6 hours. Like I was it was dedicated. We had like these huge caseloads. On average, we had 60 cases at all times. Like all five of us, it was always a 5-person team. We had 60 cases at all times, and one case could be more complicated than another, and it didn't. Management gave no consideration for that. Like an easy case would be like a newer, recently released movie title where maybe three reuse markets were at issue. But like in a more complicated case would be an old TV show. Like it's a 10-year-old TV show with 8 seasons. And then like 100 different writers were owed residuals for, like, let's say 7 reuse markets, or six reuse markets, something like that. That's when a spreadsheet could get very lengthy. And also if we need to draft and file a notice of claim for arbitration, that also gets complicated, because if it's an 8-year-old title, that means that there's multiple MBA years, and each MBA, the collective bargaining agreement is like 600 to 700 pages. So you have to look at multiple 600-page contracts to get the right contract language to draft this notice of claim. So the job can get very time consuming. And again, we were a 5-person team up against these various studios who each had their residuals departments that had like maybe 20 people. And we also didn't have like any kind of like an assistant. We didn't have. It was just us. Being in charge of the accounting, the customer service, following up with the writers when they had questions, and the paralegal work of drafting these notices of claim for arbitration. My conscience is clean in regards to the kind of work that I performed there. But I was let go. I always felt like I was the fall guy, because there were certain cases that got behind. But the thing is, I always documented what was going on with all of my cases. Like let's say a notice of claim was pending. Like I had a draft just on my supervisor, the residuals collections and administrator's shelf, and it was there for 6 months. Her shelf is like literally like 3 or 4 feet in front of her. Like she could just look in front of her at all times and see what's there. And also, I would, log into this case management software, and that would be the update. It's on her desk pending review for 6 months. But it's like, I'm the one who took the fall for it. And, I remember asking, did her, she lost a good employee, we kind of, our 5-person team kind of worked like a hive mind. People would just, yell out their problems, and I would constantly like volunteer to help my coworkers. Would created spreadsheet templates for make things a lot easier for some of these people who are like not mathematically inclined. I was very helpful with with some of my newer teammates because we had a lot of turnover. But yeah, I remember asking an employee who, like 9 months later, like, did her behavior like change at all, like so that this doesn't happen again? And she, and this employee said, "Oh yeah, this person went on a 2-week vacation and expecting that their notice of claim would be reviewed and approved like by the time they got back, and then nothing was done with it." So it's like management. That was a management issue, and like they're continuing to. They were continuing to have this, and the thing is, like, she didn't have a caseload. Also, previous residuals collections administrators, would have like a caseload of like something like 15 cases, like that required special handling by somebody who had a management title, but she had no case. I don't know how she negotiated that, but like the entire time that she was working there, when she was my supervisor, and even like 9 months after I was no longer there, she didn't have her own caseload, and it's like no one knew what she was up to, and she lasted something like 7 years. 7 years later. I think she retired, and I don't know how her employment was separated, but now she's like, I recently found out she's a VP at Paramount now. And that's another issue. There's a lot of turnover, and a lot of people leave for studios. And even though I only worked there for 3 years, through this legal case management software, I was exposed to a lot of names, and sometimes I would look them up and see, where did they go? And so many different times, these people went on to work on the for-profit side. I can count two people's names who actually went on to work for other unions. One person went on to work for SEIU, and another person went on to work for another, I forget if it was the Editors Guild or, but it was another entertainment union. So it's like, out of all these different names, only 2 people went on to work for other unions. And I was just like, why isn't that a concern? And I remember in 2017, in the lead up to negotiating the 2017 MBA, there was a strike authorization, and David Young, the former executive director, he had an all-staff meeting. He asked everyone to raise their hands to answer, how many people were working at the guild in the last 2007-2008 strike, and it was like less than a handful of people. And he noticed that, and he just flatly said, "Oh, so we have pretty good turnover here." And it was just like such a matter-of-fact way that he said it, and nothing was done like subsequently. like to to try to solve that. And the thing is, there's so much involved in enforcing contractual provisions. It's not just about reading the MBA. It's about knowing what to look out for, and that requires experience. Because sometimes, like I said, sometimes you'll have a case for a TV series that spans multiple contract years, and you have to know what to look out for. And those things, like I said, there's so many people who move on to work for the studios, and sometimes as an enforcer, you'll be up against somebody who was a veteran who used to work for the Writers Guild. So that would be an example where experience should be valued going up against some of these people, and also valued to prevent some of this brain drain. And it's unfortunate that the Writers Guild management practices remains unchanged. About nearly 10 years later, after I stopped working there, and I nearly killed myself. Trying to meet their metrics, trying to meet the requirements. And the thing is, I'm not dumb. I was very smart, very clever, very quick on my feet. I was a crucial member of my team. I really, and like I said, I worked long hours. I was smart. I truly believed that during my roster. When I say roster, I mean the entire staff directory during my period. I believe I was the hardest working person in that building. And a beautiful moment of validation for me was when I was terminated. It wasn't. I had to leave the building immediately and then gather my belongings at a non-weekday. I think it was on the next day, Saturday. I came to meet the HR manager, Mary Casey, and the security guard. He saw me, and he had this look of shock. Because the security guard, he sees everybody who comes in and out of the building. It's not that the staff numbers were not that high. It's like less than 200 people. So he notices who works long hours, who doesn't. And the fact that it was a look of shock on his face to see me. I was the one coming to gather his personal belongings. That was a beautiful moment of validation for me. And I just want to point out, this is, if the union is treating their union staff employees like they're hard-working union staff employees, is this something that you would approve of as a dues-paying union member?